Everybody knows Super Strikers, the Nigerian comic from way back when we were in primary school, like 2005. It was kind of a big influence when it came out. It was in every Mr. Biggs and every textbook filling station. Even now, they're still selling the new issues at shop right next to the Archie Comics. It was like a generational touchstone, and honestly something any Nigerian could be proud of. I mean, sure, it eventually moved abroad and traded most of its heritage for an accent and a green card like most of our cousins, but at least we can still say it started here. It's a proud Nigerian creation, and no one can contest that. Aside from 70% of the internet, including Wikipedia. In fact, according to most of the internet, Super Strikers was never a Nigerian product. It is and has always been proudly South African. Okay, if you were born in the late 90s like me, you know this comic from primary school. It was like 10 naira or I think 15 naira back then. I can't really remember. I remember the first time I went home with a school bus and the bus driver stopped to get fuel from the Texaco filling station near the school. And right next to the fuel attendant was this small stack of Super Strikers comics. I think that was like issue 5, but that was the very first time I had seen Super Strikers. I remember being able to get the first issue, I think from a friend. One line that never left my head is, "Why the boss and son for my Gary?" That may not be how he said it. I'm not even sure if that's where the line originally came from, but it was the first place I read that line, and that line stuck. Same thing with Shegs Okoro with his hairstyle that looks like Shuku and his big fucking lips. I really liked that comic, and I tried to keep up with it whenever I could, but eventually Texaco stopped selling it and then just stopped existing in my area. After that, I didn't see another Super Strikers comic till like GS2, and by then so much had changed, but I still really liked it. As a matter of fact, I preferred the new look because it looked clean and consistent. Their stories were starting to get a bit more, adventurous, a bit more interesting. So I stuck around for a while, even through the ninjas and mind control and the robots, but I just had to draw the line at werewolves. By that point, the stories were becoming way too extra and the supernatural shit was just getting boring. So I just stopped reading the comics and stopped bothering to get them at all. Later, I saw this terrible cartoon that they had on Disney XD, like My Story animated level animation quality. It was bad. But by then, I had completely checked out, so I wasn't bothered. I mean, it was clear they had sold it to a foreign company, but I still saw it as something to be proud of as Nigeria. An original Nigerian comic that blew up so high, got its own TV show. It was a good thing, and that was all I knew about the topic until like last week. To be honest, this video was supposed to be about cheese balls and the very fucked cycle with Nigerian snack companies, but I was writing this joke about cheese balls coming out back when Super Strikers was still Nigerian, and I just needed to confirm the year Super Strikers came out, only for Wikipedia to tell me that Super Strikers was first published in South Africa, and it only came to Nigeria in 2002. Which cannot be true. No offense to the SA, but you did not create Shegs Okoro. The Super Strikers comic was one of the biggest success stories for the Nigerian comic industry. The original team of the Super Strikers were Nigerian, aside from maybe Cool Joe and Dancing Rasta. And I'm not even sure about those two. I think they might have been Nigerian as well. It was such an event when Twisting Tiger joined the team in all his kung fu glory. So why does the internet think it's South Africa? Because I could find very little online about the comic's origin in Nigeria. It's only ever mentioned in passing on a few websites, but the deeper I went, the worse things became. On the comic book's website and on the Wikipedia page, his name isn't even Shegs anymore. It's now Shakes. Shakes. Samuel Shakes. He's apparently from Soweto in Johannesburg. Yeah. You know the keeper? He's now an American named Big Bull. I can't even remember his original name. Like, when did all of this happen? When did so much change about Super Strikers? At this point, it felt like the internet was trying to gaslight. I had always assumed that, the name Super Strikers was originally a play on the Super Eagles, Nigeria's football team, but the company behind the comic is actually called Striker Entertainment. Like, they were called that before the comic was made. So I decided, you know what, let me do a bit more research. Let me look into the company at least to try and make sense of things. And that's when I found a black hole. You see, the comic and the TV show have their website, which has its own problems, but you go to the company website, striker.com, and what you get is Striker Industrial Communications, which is a website about improving safety in the mining industry. It doesn't even mention the comics or the TV show, despite still having the same logo that is on the comics website and a direct link that you can click to take you from the comic website to the company's website. The only thing that I can say kind of links the two are some of the drawings in their posters because the art style kind of looks similar, but that's it. Even the Super Strikers fan page has no information on the company. It just says Striker Entertainment with no information under it. So who exactly is in charge of Super Strikers? At least who created it? Okay, outside of this Wikipedia article, there are a lot of other names that are linked with Super Strikers. For example, you have Bruce Legg, who is listed as a director at Striker Entertainment. You also have Richard Morgan Grenville, who is a CEO at Striker Entertainment. But those people aren't a part of the creation of Super Strikers, which is what I'm interested in. So I mostly use the Wikipedia article as my reference for the people involved with the creation. When I started out, the names were more like just ghosts with no faces behind them. But then I noticed something weird, like if you Google Super Strikers, say Lee Hartman, the first thing it's going to bring up is the Super Strikers Wikipedia page. But if you Google Lee Hartman Strikers, no super, what you get is some decent information. But first, we're going to start with Oliver Parr. Oliver Parr is a bit of a weird one, because while you can find him listed in a few places as a producer, he mostly doesn't seem to exist. I was surprised when I could actually find an article that mentioned him properly with some words from an interview. Another article I found was locked behind a paywall, and the only other source of information that properly mentions Oliver Parr will have to come later in the video because it might just be the bow that is needed to completely wrap up this weird little mess. So for now, let's move on to Andrew Smith, who is basically a ghost, and his name is so common that it's almost impossible to find any decent information on him. After a bit more searching, I found this website, artlinks.co.uk. I'll link it in the description. Still no face, but it has an interview with Andrew Smith where he talks about the success of Super Strikers and the possibility of creating a Super Strikers cartoon. This was all the way back in 2003. I later found another article from Biz Community which has quotes from both Andrew Smith and Oliver Parr. It's just mainly them talking about their sponsors and how big the Super Strikers comic is getting. And it lists both of them as director, Striker Entertainment. Unfortunately, that's where the line ends with Andrew Smith. I couldn't find anything else. So let's move on to Alex Kramer. No, Lee Hartman first. There's a bit of progression and I want to keep that here. Lee Hartman actually has a LinkedIn profile where he's listed as the joint CEO and founder of Striker Entertainment. It says he was there from 2004 to 2009, which is a bit weird because Striker Entertainment was supposed to be founded in like the year 2000 or 2001. There's not much else about Lee, so we're just going to move on to Alex Kramer. Alex Kramer actually has quite a bit of online presence. He's kind of famous compared to the others. Of course, he has a LinkedIn page, and on his page he's listed as co-founder and board member of Striker Entertainment. He's also listed as the creator of the Super Strikers franchise. He's also listed on the Wikipedia page for the TV show as its creative director. And that sort of wraps it up because now we've been able to see the creators, at least. Not all of them have a decent online presence for you to be able to at least know who they are, but the few of them that do have enough to confirm that they were involved with Super Strikers at least sometime around that time. So that should wrap things up. Except there's one last loose thread I found, which concerns Mr. Oliver Parr and Mr. Tommy Davies. And for me to explain why this thread seems to be so intertwined with the story of Super Strikers, I need to explain who Mr. Tommy Davies is first. He's a British-Nigerian investor that mostly looks at tech startups. He's a lead investor in a number of companies and is sort of a startup guru. And most articles that talk about how he started mention SUPA Strikers because the first company he invested in was Striker Entertainment in 2001 when he met Mr. Oliver Power, who came to him with the idea for an African superhero comic based on the popular folklore and legends of different African countries. Mr. Davies then traveled to Cape Town where he was able to properly discuss with their team. The idea was to work with brand sponsorships for investment and become something similar to Marvel. But they ended up scrapping the superhero aspect because they didn't think it would sell well. Instead, they chose to go with a football storyline because Africans love football. And like that, SUPA Strikers was born. It started out as a 24-page comic published in the Sunday Times in South Africa, and the name of the main character was Shakes Mokena. It was published monthly, and as it became successful, they branched out to newspapers in other African countries. And for each country, they made changes to the characters and parts of the story to better relate to the audience. So each country it was in would have its own version of Shakes Okoro and their own story, which is why he Shakes Mokena in South Africa and Shakes Makena in Kenya. According to Mr. Tommy Davies, he was in charge of the localization effort in Nigeria. So he's the one that gave us Shakes Okoro and Why the Boss and Sam for my Gary. He was given full rights to SUPA Strikers Nigeria and shares in SUPA Strikers South Africa. Later, SUPA Strikers South Africa was sold to Moonbug Entertainment, after which it was later sold to Disney, which explains why it's on Disney XD. So in my opinion, this seems to be the most detailed account that I can trust. In terms of the timeline, it kind of links up with what was said on Wikipedia, and it also makes sense that they wouldn't really mention him since he was more of an investor than one of the creators of SUPA Strikers. When I first started getting into this, I felt a bit sad just knowing that SUPA Strikers is not really what I thought it was. Not to discredit the people who created it or the good people who worked on the localization, but there's just something funky about finding out there are like 15 different versions of Shakes. But at a point I just sort of accepted it for what it is. I was actually quite happy when I found this article from a guy in Nairobi talking about a rather similar experience, how he himself came into this information. I strongly recommend you read it as well. It was really nice to see this unique perspective that you can only get from someone who experienced this different version of the story the same way you experienced yours. I also have to recommend this other article I saw on Pulse NG. It's from a Nigerian guy and you can just feel the nostalgia when the guy talks about the first time he read SUPA Strikers as well. Like I said, for me, I eventually lost interest in the comic. However, it still had its impact on me, especially in terms of art. It was one of the stepping stones that got me to keep drawing, and every time I think about comics in Nigeria, I remember SUPA Strikers. It's still a source of inspiration for the Nigerian comic book industry, even if we didn't create it. And while what we got was a localized version of a South African story, it was still a story crafted for us. There are a lot of good memories associated with these stories, and those memories are still there. I need to shout out the Nigerian comic industry. You guys are just doing great, really. There is so much creativity flowing, and just take this. Yeah, so that's a bit with SUPA Strikers. If you like this kind of video, please let me know. I would really like to know so that I know whether I could either do more of this or just, do more of the other stuff. And also check out the other stuff I've done. Let me know what you think, whether I could, do more of that. I almost always forget to say this. Like and subscribe. I don't know, it feels weird having to say it again, but like and subscribe, it helps. Yeah. And I think that's it. That's it for this video. If I do another one of this, I might actually decide to attack the Nigerian snack industry. I don't know. Something just their practices just annoy the hell out of me. Okay, let me end out on this. I feel like a lot of people know this, but I still feel like there are some people that don't know. Did you know Indomie is from Indonesia? Look it up. It's weird. Bye.